In Russia, the media is buzzing after Tony Stark publicly reveals that he's Iron Man. Hundreds of miles away, an aging scientist named Anton Vanko quietly watches the broadcast. Knowing his time is running out, he calls his son Ivan to his bedside. Anton tells him that the only thing he can leave behind is his knowledge. Decades earlier, he helped Howard Stark develop the arc reactor, and he still possesses the original blueprints. With his final breath, Anton tells Ivan that the Stark family's fortune should have belonged to them as well. Moments later, he dies. Heartbroken and consumed by anger, Ivan vows to make the Starks pay. Using his father's blueprints, he spends months building his own arc reactor. Against all odds, he succeeds. And that's only the beginning. 6 months later, Tony Stark has become more than a billionaire genius. He's the world's biggest superhero. As Iron Man, he's saving lives across the globe, and his popularity has never been higher. Tony arrives at the Stark Expo in New York and reminds the audience that true success isn't measured by what you achieve today, but by what you leave behind for the next generation. He announces that starting next year, the world's brightest minds will gather at the Expo to share ideas that could shape the future. To honor that vision, Tony plays an old film of Howard Stark unveiling the very first Stark Expo. But while everyone else celebrates, Tony slips away to check something no one knows about. The arc reactor in his chest is slowly poisoning his blood, and the numbers keep climbing. Tony leaves the Expo with Happy Hogan, but waiting beside his car is a woman carrying an official government summons. The next morning, Tony appears before the Senate Armed Forces Committee in Washington, D.C. The senators demand that he surrender the Iron Man armor to the U.S. military, arguing that it belongs to the nation. Tony refuses without hesitation. To him, the suit isn't just technology, it's part of who he is. Handing it over would be like handing over himself, but the government isn't ready to back down. To strengthen their case, the committee calls Justin Hammer, CEO of Hammer Industries. Ever since Stark Industries left the weapons business, Hammer has become one of the military's biggest defense contractors. They also bring in James Rhodes to present his official report. Rhodey admits that Iron Man technically operates outside government control, making him a potential security risk. But he also points out one undeniable fact. Iron Man has saved far more lives than he's endangered. Before Rhodey can finish, the senator interrupts and presents classified footage showing that several countries are racing to build their own Iron Man armor. According to the committee, some are already close to succeeding, but Tony immediately realizes they're hiding the truth. Within seconds, Tony hacks into the Senate's presentation and replaces it with the real footage. Instead of advanced supersuits, the screens fill with embarrassing failures. Robots collapse, armor malfunctions, and one of Hammer Industries' own prototypes can barely stay upright. Justin quickly shuts the video off, but the damage is already done. Tony smirks and tells the room that while other nations may still be years behind him, Hammer Industries is at least 20 years away from building a real Iron Man suit. Justin awkwardly insists those were only test models, but no one looks convinced. Tony reminds everyone that he already prevented a nuclear catastrophe and has done more to protect the country than anyone expected. But no matter what anyone says, the suit isn't up for negotiation. He ends the hearing with one bold statement. World peace has never been closer, and he's the reason why. The crowd erupts, but somewhere else, someone is watching with a very different reaction. Ivan watches every second of the hearing. Fueled by revenge, he upgrades his own armor and forges 2 deadly electrified whips capable of slicing through almost anything. At the same time, Tony returns to his Malibu workshop and checks his blood toxicity again. The results are worse than before. Jarvis confirms his biggest fear. Every time Tony uses the arc reactor, the poisoning accelerates. Even the treatments he's been taking barely slow it down anymore. Tony removes the arc reactor and examines its core. The palladium inside is almost completely burned out. Without it, the reactor won't work. But with it, Tony won't survive much longer. Jarvis has already tested every known element on Earth, but nothing can replace palladium. Unfortunately, that's the very element poisoning Tony's body. In a cruel twist of fate, the device keeping him alive is also killing him. Just then, Pepper walks in. Jarvis suggests telling her the truth, but Tony immediately shuts him down. He refuses to let her see what he's going through. Pepper tries to pull his attention back to Stark Industries, warning that the company is losing focus while Tony keeps chasing distractions. But Tony has already made up his mind. Instead, he stuns Pepper with an unexpected announcement. He wants her to become the new CEO of Stark Industries. Pepper is speechless. Tony tells her she's the only person he trusts to protect everything they've built. The next day, he officially hands her the company with the help of his new legal assistant, Natalie Rushman. Tony is instantly drawn to Natalie and hires her as his personal assistant, completely unaware that she's actually Natasha Romanoff, an undercover SHIELD agent. But Tony has bigger problems than office politics. Not long afterward, Tony heads to Monaco for the famous Grand Prix. While relaxing with Pepper at a luxury hotel, he briefly runs into Elon Musk, and the two casually joke about building an electric jet someday. Moments later, Tony checks his blood toxicity again. It's already climbed to 53%. The clock is ticking. Believing his time is running out, he decides to stop playing it safe. Without warning anyone, Tony walks onto the Formula One track and takes the place of one of the professional drivers. Pepper is horrified the moment she finds out. The race begins, and Tony tears down the track at full speed. But someone else has been waiting for this exact moment. Ivan Vanko calmly walks past security, activates his homemade armor, and steps onto the track. With a single swing of his electrified whip, he slices a Formula One car clean in half. Panic spreads instantly. Happy and Pepper race to bring Tony the Iron Man suitcase armor before it's too late. Tony barely has time to react before Ivan cuts his race car in half, sending it spinning across the track. Somehow, Tony crawls out alive as explosions erupt all around him. With no armor, he's completely defenseless and forced to run. Happy suddenly slams his Rolls-Royce into Ivan, buying Tony a few precious seconds. But Ivan gets right back up. Happy hits him again, but even that isn't enough to stop him. Tony calls for the suitcase armor, but Ivan slices through the car before Pepper can reach him. Thinking fast, she throws the suitcase across the track. It locks onto Tony in seconds, transforming him into Iron Man right in front of thousands of stunned spectators. The fight immediately shifts in Tony's favor, but not for long. Ivan's electrified whips crash into the armor with incredible force, throwing Iron Man around like a rag doll. Realizing brute force won't work, Tony changes tactics. He lets the whips wrap around his suit, trapping Ivan for just long enough to strike back. Seconds later, Tony rips the arc reactor out of Ivan's chest rig and destroys it. The battle is over, but one question refuses to leave Tony's mind. How did Ivan build arc reactor technology that should have been impossible? The next day, Tony visits Ivan in prison searching for answers. Ivan reveals that the arc reactor design came from his father, Anton Vanko, the same man who once worked alongside Howard Stark. Tony insists he's never heard the name before, but Ivan accuses the Stark family of stealing other people's work and rewriting history to make themselves look like heroes. Tony refuses to believe him and starts to leave. That's when Ivan delivers one final warning. The arc reactor poisoning Tony's body will kill him long before anyone else gets the chance. And according to Ivan, the entire world is about to watch Iron Man die. Tony cooks dinner for Pepper, hoping to enjoy one quiet evening together. But Pepper immediately notices something is wrong. Tony awkwardly suggests canceling his birthday party and leaving town instead. She turns him down, assuming he's simply overwhelmed. What she doesn't realize is that Tony believes these may be the last good days he has left. Ivan's prison break is over almost as soon as it begins. A corrupt guard slips a bomb into his meal and swaps his cellmate with another inmate wearing the same prison number. Ivan kills the man, blows open his cell, and makes his escape. But instead of running, he's picked up by two men working for Justin Hammer. Justin welcomes Ivan with an offer. Rotting in prison would be a waste of his talent. If Ivan truly wants revenge on Tony Stark, killing him isn't enough. He has to destroy everything Tony built. Justin wants an army powerful enough to replace Iron Man. Ivan agrees, but only if Justin brings him his pet bird first. Strange as it sounds, Justin has no choice but to say yes. Meanwhile, Tony's reputation continues to fall apart. The media questions whether Iron Man has become too reckless to protect the country. Pepper and Natalie work overtime to calm the public, while Tony secretly investigates Anton Vanko's past. Jarvis reveals that Anton once worked alongside Howard Stark before being deported to the Soviet Union on espionage charges. Years later, Ivan followed in his father's footsteps as a physicist, but eventually spent 15 years behind bars for selling plutonium-based weapons. The deeper Tony digs, the more questions he finds. Rhodey soon arrives with bad news. After everything that happened in Monaco, the military wants Iron Man technology under government control. Tony argues that no one can truly recreate his armor, but Ivan already proved otherwise. As the conversation continues, Tony suddenly loses his balance. Rhodey helps him back to the workshop, where Tony replaces the damaged palladium core inside the arc reactor. The burned-out core is smoking, and the dark veins spreading across Tony's neck tell Rhodey everything he needs to know. The arc reactor isn't just keeping Tony alive, it's killing him. Tony brushes it off, but Rhodey refuses to believe the lie. He reminds Tony that he doesn't have to fight this battle alone. Tony stays silent. Across town, Justin gives Ivan a tour of Hammer Industries and proudly shows off his military drones. Ivan hacks into the entire system within seconds and dismisses the software as complete junk. Justin finally reveals what he really wants: a military contract that will keep Hammer Industries on top for decades. More importantly, he wants to humiliate Tony Stark at the upcoming Stark Expo. Ivan looks over the drones, smiles, and quietly says, "I can do better." As Tony prepares for his birthday party, he checks his blood toxicity one more time. The number has climbed to 89%. In Tony's mind, the countdown has already begun. Instead of spending his final days worrying, he decides to enjoy what's left. Wearing the Iron Man suit, he crashes his own party and quickly turns it into total chaos. Pepper is horrified. Rhodey has seen enough. He heads into Tony's workshop, puts on the Mark II armor, and orders everyone to leave. What starts as an argument quickly turns into a brutal fight. Repulsor blasts tear through the mansion as the two armored heroes push each other to the limit. One final explosion knocks them both unconscious. When Tony wakes up, he watches Rhodey fly away in the Mark II armor. This time, he doesn't try to stop him. Rhodey arrives at Edwards Air Force Base, where the military is thrilled to finally have Iron Man technology in its hands, but Tony is nowhere near the base. Instead, he's sitting on top of a giant donut sign, quietly eating a donut as if nothing happened. That's exactly where Nick Fury finds him. Fury gets straight to the point. Tony refuses to work with S.H.I.E.L.D., but Fury already knows the truth. Tony is dying. Then Natalie finally drops the disguise, revealing herself as Natasha Romanoff, better known as Black Widow. Tony never saw it coming, and Fury is about to show him that the arc reactor isn't his biggest problem anymore. Nick Fury points out that Tony has been giving away pieces of his life one by one. He handed Stark Industries over to Pepper, let Rhodey walk away with the Iron Man armor, and has been acting like a man with nothing left to lose. Tony insists Rhodey stole the suit, but Natasha immediately calls his bluff. The armor only responds to Tony's authorization, meaning he let Rhodey take it. Before Tony can argue, Natasha injects him with lithium dioxide, temporarily slowing the poisoning in his body. The dark veins on his neck begin to fade almost instantly. Hoping for a miracle, Tony asks for more, but Natasha shuts him down. It isn't a cure, it only buys him a little more time. Tony explains that he's already tested every possible element, and nothing can replace palladium. As far as he's concerned, he's reached a dead end, but Fury isn't convinced. He tells Tony there's one place he hasn't looked yet, his father's legacy. Fury takes Tony home and reveals the truth about Howard Stark and Anton Vanko. The two once worked together on the arc reactor, but Anton cared more about profit than progress. After Howard exposed him, Anton was deported back to the Soviet Union, where his life slowly fell apart. Tony still isn't buying it. He believes Howard never cared about him and only saw him as a disappointment. Fury disagrees. Before leaving, he hands Tony a box filled with Howard's personal belongings and tells him the answers have been there all along. Then Fury walks away, leaving Phil Coulson and Natasha behind to keep an eye on him. Tony has no idea that everything is about to change. Meanwhile, Rhodey presents the Mark II armor to the U.S. Air Force. The military is impressed, but there's one problem. The suit barely has any weapons. They order Rhodey to let Justin Hammer upgrade it before the Stark Expo. Rhodey doesn't trust Hammer, but he's overruled. Before turning the armor over, he secretly removes Tony's original arc reactor. Justin proudly shows off his latest arsenal, including a missile that's supposedly powerful enough to level an entire bunker. Rhodey simply tells him to load the suit with everything he's got. Across town, Justin finally delivers Ivan's pet bird. Ivan takes one look and immediately realizes it's the wrong one. He pushes it aside without another word. Justin is confused, but his attention quickly shifts to something else. Instead of building Iron Man suits, Ivan has been creating combat drones. Justin demands an explanation. Ivan calmly tells him that drones are superior because machines never panic, and they never disobey orders. Back at home, Tony finally opens the box Howard left behind. Inside, he discovers an old film reel. As it begins to play, Howard speaks directly to him from the past. He explains that Tony was too young to understand his work back then, so he left this message for the future. Howard reveals that the Stark Expo model wasn't just an exhibit, it was a blueprint. As Tony studies it more closely, he realizes the entire layout forms the structure of an element that doesn't exist yet. Then, Howard says something Tony never imagined he'd hear. "Technology hasn't caught up to my vision yet, but yours will." After a brief pause, he adds one final sentence. "My greatest creation is you." For the first time in years, Tony sees his father in a completely different light. Determined to finish what Howard started, Tony rushes to Stark Industries, hoping to tell Pepper everything, but she's buried in meetings and overwhelmed with her new responsibilities as CEO. Before Tony can say a word, she's called away once again. Now he's on his own, but for the first time since this nightmare began, Tony finally has hope. Back at his mansion, Tony brings the original Stark Expo model into his workshop. With Jarvis scanning scanning every detail, he slowly pieces the entire design together. Then something incredible happens. Hidden inside the layout is the blueprint for a brand new element, one that no scientist has ever discovered. Tony is stunned. Decades ago, Howard Stark had already solved the problem Tony couldn't. Jarvis confirms the new element could replace palladium and power the arc reactor without poisoning him. There's just one catch: it has never existed before. With no time to waste, Tony builds a massive particle accelerator inside his workshop. After hours of non-stop work, the machine finally comes to life. Moments later, it creates the impossible, the brand new element Howard envisioned years earlier. Tony immediately installs it into the arc reactor. As Jarvis runs a diagnostic, the results come back better than anyone expected. The new core works perfectly, and for the first time in months, the poisoning in Tony's body begins to disappear. But Tony barely has time to celebrate. At Hammer Industries, Ivan quietly eliminates one of the security guards before hacking into the company's network. Then he places a call to Tony. The moment Tony hears Ivan's voice, he realizes his worst enemy is still alive. Ivan promises that destroying Tony was never the goal. He's going to destroy the Stark legacy instead. Tony immediately tries to trace the call, but Ivan disconnects before Jarvis can lock onto his location. Even so, Tony figures out exactly what's happening. If Justin Hammer is unveiling a new military project at the Stark Expo, Ivan must be behind it. Without waiting for the reactor's final safety checks, Tony suits up and heads straight for the Expo. Unfortunately, he's already running out of time. Meanwhile, the Stark Expo is packed with thousands of spectators as Justin Hammer takes the stage. He proudly unveils his new Hammer drones, claiming they'll protect American soldiers without risking human lives. Then comes the main attraction, the upgraded Mark II armor, now piloted by Rhodey. With the entire drone army linked to War Machine, Justin believes this is the future of modern warfare, but he's about to lose control of everything. Just then, Iron Man crashes the presentation. Rhodey assumes Tony is there to ruin the event, but Tony urgently warns him that everyone is in danger. Justin has been working with Ivan Vanko, and the drones are nothing more than a trap. Before Rhodey can respond, Ivan hacks directly into Hammer Industries' network. Within seconds, every drone, and even War Machine's armor, is under Ivan's control. Rhodey's targeting system suddenly locks onto Tony. At the same time, every Hammer drone turns its weapons toward Iron Man. Tony has only one option. He flies away from the Expo, hoping to lure the drones away from the civilians. The entire drone army chases after him, blasting through buildings and sending thousands of people scrambling for cover. Inside the Expo, Justin rushes to his engineers, only to discover they've completely lost control of the system. Pepper and Natasha immediately confront Justin. At first, he refuses to talk, but Natasha quickly changes his mind. He finally admits that Ivan built every single drone and is operating from Hammer Industries. Pepper calls the police while Natasha and Happy race to the factory to stop Ivan before it's too late. Outside, Tony continues dodging non-stop attacks from War Machine and the drone army. Meanwhile, the remaining drones begin tearing through the Expo, turning the celebration into a war zone. During the chaos, one young boy wearing an Iron Man mask stands frozen in front of a drone, too scared to move. The machine raises its weapon, but at the very last second, Iron Man drops out of the sky and shields the boy from the blast. Tony then pulls the drones away from the Expo and leads them into the parking garage, where several are destroyed in a chain of explosions. Watching from afar, Ivan calmly redirects the rest of the drone army back toward the Expo. At the same time, Natasha suits up as Black Widow and storms into Hammer Industries. The guards never stand a chance. She takes them down one by one with ruthless efficiency, but when she finally reaches Ivan's lab, he's already gone, and Tony is still completely surrounded. Tony leads the drone army straight through one of the Expo's massive structures, causing several drones to crash and explode. But Rhodey is still under Ivan's control. He catches up to Iron Man, knocks him out of the sky, and launches another attack. Just as Tony is about to be overwhelmed, Natasha finally breaks into Hammer Industries' control system and restores the War Machine armor. Instantly, Ivan loses control of Rhodey. Natasha calls Tony and tells him the good news. Rhodey's back on their side, but dozens of drones are still closing in. Tony helps Rhodey back to his feet, and Rhodey apologizes for taking the Mark II armor. Tony brushes it off because they have a much bigger problem. Within seconds, the remaining drones surround them from every direction. Iron Man and War Machine fight back side by side, but the numbers are overwhelming. Realizing they can't keep this up forever, Tony activates his experimental laser system. In one blinding sweep, the beam slices through an entire wave of drones, destroying them almost instantly. Rhodey is blown away. "Why haven't you used that before?" Tony smirks, because it only works once. For a moment, it looks like the battle is finally over. Then Natasha warns Tony that one last signal is heading straight toward them, and it's far stronger than any of the others. A second later, Ivan Vanko arrives in a brand new suit, heavier, stronger, and built for one purpose alone, killing Iron Man. Rhodey immediately fires Hammer's so-called ex-wife missile. The missile hits its target and does absolutely nothing. Tony can't help but laugh, figures. Hammer built it. Ivan charges forward, his electrified whips tearing through the air. Even combined, Iron Man and War Machine can't break his armor. Ivan traps both heroes with his whips, pulling them in as his suit starts crushing theirs. Tony realizes brute force won't win this fight. Thinking fast, he tells Rhodey to fire directly at him. Without hesitation, they both unleash their repulsors at the exact same moment. The blasts collide between them, creating a massive energy shockwave that tears through Ivan's armor. The explosion destroys his suit, sending him crashing to the ground. As Ivan takes his final breath, he looks at Tony and quietly smiles. "You lose." At first, Tony doesn't understand. Then every remaining drone begins flashing red. Ivan had rigged every single one with self-destruct charges. Rhodey immediately realizes what's happening. "We have to move now!" But Tony suddenly remembers Pepper. She's still inside the Expo. Without wasting another second, Tony rockets back toward the building. One of the damaged drones near Pepper begins its final countdown. Just before it detonates, Tony grabs her and carries her into the air. A split second later, the entire Stark Expo erupts in a chain of massive explosions. From a nearby rooftop, Tony and Pepper watch the destruction from a safe distance. After everything they've been through, Pepper admits she's exhausted. Being CEO means nothing if she's constantly wondering whether Tony will make it home alive. Tony smiles. He tells her he'll take Stark Industries back because there are some responsibilities only he can carry. Then he thanks her for never giving up on him. This time, Pepper doesn't say a word. She simply kisses him. Nearby, Rhodey watches the moment with a grin before joking that he's taking the War Machine armor home. Tony pretends to protest, but Rhodey is already gone. Later, during a SHIELD debriefing, Nick Fury delivers his final evaluation. According to Fury, Iron Man is exactly the kind of hero the Avengers Initiative needs. Tony Stark isn't. He's reckless, arrogant, unpredictable, and far too willing to risk his own life. Tony smiles and admits Fury isn't completely wrong, but after everything that's happened, he's ready to be better. For now, Fury agrees to bring him on as a consultant. Tony accepts, but only after making one final request. He wants Fury to make sure that both he and Rhodey receive the medals they've earned. Not long afterward, the two heroes are honored in Washington for saving countless lives during the attack on Stark Expo. The ceremony comes to an end, but for Tony Stark, this is only the beginning of a much bigger story.